Hi, today it's about the 8th contact, Tuesday, March the 18th, 1975, 4 minutes past 3 p.m. Billy asks, matter, material, what is it? Semjase, material is a palpable idea. It is a solid form of energy that is palpable. Billy, that is commonsensical, but how does material come into being? Semjase, the principle is very simple, however, I'm not allowed to tell it. However, it is a fact that any energy can be converted into solid forms. It is only necessary to highly focus and highly concentrate the respective energy, whereby it can be converted into solid material. In this manner, the elementary building blocks of the solid substance of the material are created: neutron, proton, and electron. From these, the atoms and the variety of the chemical compounds form, which then, in their three different states of aggregation, form the solid external causing, which is nevertheless known to your scientists. Solid material, as well as kind of energy, are in every respect of equal value. That is to say that kind of energy is absolute material, just as kind of material is absolute energy. That means that without exception, anything in the universe consists of material, of energy, or energy. So it's quite simple, yet amazing, that matter or material and energy are interchangeable. So you can change matter or material into energy and energy into material. So Einstein is correct where he equates energy and matter. And she also says, material is the embodiment of an idea. As energy, material is fine fluidal, and as mass, it is just highly concentrated and condensed. Both types can be produced by apparatus, which you two are already practicing in various forms. Normally, however, they are produced completely naturally, namely through spiritual power, which is preceded by the idea. Fundamentally, the creation is responsible for this. A tremendous spiritual form, a factor that, in turn, embodies kind of energy. It is from the creation that the idea arises. So she explains that the conversion from energy to matter can not only happen through apparatuses, but also through spiritual power. And that I'm sure very, very, very few people are capable of, that they can manifest something. I mean, there are some hoaxers, famous gurus, who manifest stuff, but that are just tricks, But certainly there are people who can manifest matter or material. But there are very few, and they wouldn't publicly display that or so. Possibly maybe somewhere in private or so, But all the people who do that in public, and it's filmed and so on, that are just tricks, But since Semjase says it's really possible, it shows the incredible power of our spiritual form, where the energy comes from that the consciousness can create it. The power of the spirit, which in turn embodies energy, then condenses and concentrates the idea into fine fluidal energy, which is then condensed by even greater concentration into the coarse substantial, into the material. Billy, then the whole universe, with all the trimmings, is actually only an idea condensed and concentrated into the fine fluidal and coarse substantial energy. Semjase, sure. Billy, what then is this tremendous spiritual form, the creation factor? Semjase, the creation consists of an idea in the creation, condensed in the creation to the Urkind spiritual energy. We also do not know more about the creation. So, this is a book by Billy, about how it all came into being. And at the top, this is like the nihilo here. And the nihilo, there's absolutely nothing. There's no existence. Nothing is there. Really nothing. And not even existence, not space, not time, not even existence. And from that arises the Sein Absolutum. So in this is where energy or creation energy comes into play. And even the Plejaren cannot explain how this came about. And also Billy, I asked him about it. He doesn't know. This is unfathomable. How out of absolute nothing energy can arise, And these are the different, these are 7 subtle forms of pure energy, and our universe here is like it's also just energy. It's just, the material is just condensed energy, It becomes more and more coarse, but it's all energy in the end. So when people want to kind of rule the world, they want to rule a little more energy, but it's really ridiculous, It's like 2 fleas fighting over the dog they're sitting on, So, but it's because they have no wisdom, They're completely ignorant, and they're completely stuck in materialism, Though they are aware of the spiritual world, it's not that they're not aware of it, and they also use it to their advantage. But ultimately they, of course, lose, because in their evolution of consciousness, they're creating more and more obstacles, Because wisdom is always, compassion is an integral part of wisdom. So, and they're not having compassion, they're governed, their consciousness is led by selfish motives. So they're not wise at all. Yet very powerful, Billy, then you do not really know more than I do in this regard about creation. Semjase, that is so, because when a life form is able to reveal this secret, it becomes part of the creation as such. So for a human being, absolutely impossible, and we have to go through all the evolutionary steps till we don't need a body anymore, and then evolve through these different forms to Sein Absolutum, and then finally become one with creation again. There is no shortcut, And Also jumps in evolution are not good. Because there's a meaning, there's a need to go through all the levels, which I explained, or Semjase explained in the sixth contact. And this is also interesting. Billy says, well, you don't know much more than I do you? But she's not offended at all, That's because he's just stating a fact, He's not mocking her, he's not attacking her in any way or so. It's plain fact. You don't know more than I do in this regard. And Samuel, yeah, that's so, And on our planet, a person would be immediately like, if you say to a professor, well, you don't know much more than I do you? Then he would, most professors would be immediately, kind of try to heckle you or, give back and don't be cheeky or whatever, even though you're just stating a fact, instead of admitting that, no, I don't know much more either, So that shows that they are communicating on their communication is truly human and not ruled by ego or anything like that. Billy, that is about how I imagined it to be. But I still have further questions, Semjase. Semjase, just ask, but be conscious of the fact that I'm not allowed to reveal any secrets that would still be detrimental to the development of the consciousness of the human being of Earth. Therefore, please spare me questions that are of a specific nature and so forth, because in the future I would have to leave them unanswered. Billy, but precisely such questions I still have in store because I have been instructed to ask them to you. Semjase, if these questions for the answer fall under my authority, then I will, of course, answer them for you. However, only for the sake of your image, since the answers to the questions are still being expected. But do not ask any such questions in the future, because I would have to withhold the answer from you. Such questions would lead to far and ultimately would lead too far and bring the human beings of Earth more cognitions than would be good for them. So again, in our greed, we often want to know more than we should. And if you really read the contact reports slowly and really think about everything they say, there is huge amounts of knowledge in there. And you will be much further in your knowledge than any scientist on this planet. You might not have the degree and you don't know how things work in detail, but our scientists are in so many regards are so ensnared in fantasies, especially when it comes to archaeology, but also in other regards, where they limit their possibilities and their thinking to whatever they believe is like a law, and then it turns out, it's not like that, Okay, so the contact reports are really a fountain of knowledge. And then she says, their development of consciousness is still just too inhibited in every respect. If, on the other hand, you bring up questions of yourself that are in your own developmental interest, then I can go very decidedly further in answering them, this you know. It's just that then you must not talk about certain things and you are asked to keep them to yourself. That's just the same with me and Billy, you know. He told me a few things, not many, but a few things, which I shall not tell, and then I don't do it. And because that's always kind of a test. Also, like, can I keep it quiet, you know? And that's my own personal development, you know. And here listening, I don't know what your level is, and so I cannot reveal that, you know. But it's not, there's nothing that is really, you can find out for yourself, really, you know. The important things are there in nature to observe, you know. Your friends and acquaintances have in no way progressed so far that they would understand certain things. And then according to the scheme, you can classify some of them under the periods 3-2, 3-1, as well as 3-3, and one is on the level of 3-7. And I asked them who that were, and Billy didn't tell me. It's not important, but I was, of course, curious who that was or is, you know. I thought that they might have all died, and that might be no problem to tell, but then I think he didn't tell because even if they died already, that then there's talk about like, oh, he's on that level, and you know, it's that is all a little bit foolish, you know. What level am I on or so, you know. If you go to the sixth contact where it's explained, you know, it's a sliding scale bit. And you have situations in your life where you are really, maybe you think and talk and react in a wise way. And then the next day you're a complete dummy, you know. So it's a constant struggle, you know, for knowledge and wisdom, you know. It's always good to try to acquire knowledge and but what kind of thoughts you develop and the feelings and so on and your actions, that's what makes you, and that is what you have control over actually all the time, unless you're indoctrinated, and then there are these obstacles, of course, you know, and to overcome them, that is really difficult. And then Semjase continues, but they are all still subject to the urge and need of wanting to advance further than is consciousness-based beneficial to them. So focus on that. Well, of course, to get an idea where you are, but, you know, you don't have to know everything now, you know. Step by step, you advance in knowledge, you know. If you learn, if you rid yourself of indoctrination, which we are all prone to. Hence, they also raise questions for you which exceed their processing capabilities. And as a result of the same urge, they also wish to be able to enter into contact with us. This, although they know very well that this will not be possible. how do I say, Billy kind of locks the door, and there's he draws the curtain on front of the window when he's in contact with them. But in the beginning, I always thought, oh yeah, it would be cool to kind of, Sometimes you also think break in the door, and then you would see them, But that would be a big misuse of trust, and they have good reason that there's no contact. And a couple people, Silvanus saw Quetzal, even took photos of him, and Guido saw Quetzal from like 60, 70 meter distance. And so some of them saw them, and it doesn't make you then into a special person, or of course you have some confirmation, but once I did hear Quetzal, through the wall when I walked outside, but even if you would see them, would you be a better person? No, you would have confirmation. Okay, but you don't have to. I don't have to. I'm not doubting that anymore. I've too many other experiences. Also, I've never seen them. What Billy writes makes sense, if you think about it long enough. And that is self-explanatory, There's no need to see any extraterrestrials. And they're just human too. I mean, they also have flaws and mistakes, and, they're not perfect. So, though it would be nice to have a talk, maybe once in a while or so. But then again, they might tell you things you don't want to hear, so then it isn't so fun. So it would be, in most cases, it would be very disillusioning. And then she says, they must first recognize the fundamental elementary truth and acknowledge it as such before they can go any further. But they are still in the stage of doubt and do not want to let the truth of truth as such become effective in themselves. So that's the key, You see, when Asket was walking with Billy in the ashram in India, many people in the ashram saw them walking there, and they said, "Oh, this is the lady from the stars," and so on. So they knew she was an extraterrestrial, but they didn't bother them, and then there was no problem. But in our society, it doesn't work like that. And that's why they withdrew more and more, and even that we cannot see their spaceships anymore, or beam ships. Then they talk about genes and chromosomes and genetics. And Billy asks, but what about the inheritance of knowledge or simply the intelligence? Semjase, this is in a way related to the genes because intelligence is the result of evolution of the consciousness. However, spiritual and consciousness-based thinking and its resulting factors, such as knowledge, essence of wisdom, and intelligence, are pure factors of the consciousness, which can therefore express themselves consciousness-based and organically in the brain, which consists of acid substances. These acids form the carriers of consciousness-based essence of wisdom and intelligence in a solid form, while the spirit, however, fundamentally contains within itself the same knowledge as a fine fluidal factor. So wisdom and knowledge is within these asset substances in the brain, but also in the fine fluidal spirit form or creation energy form. And wisdom has to be kind of acquired in every lifetime. So Emmanuel had to do that, Billy had to do that. It's just that the more evolved your creation energy form is, the easier and quicker you can learn. But you still have to learn in every life. Semjase continues, even as a coarse, substantial life form, everything is determined by two factors. So therefore, the purely spiritual or fine fluidal life form, as well as the coarse, substantial form, must be present. In this case, this means therefore that essence of wisdom and intelligence are present as spiritual energetical, as well as material consciousness-based coarse substantial forms as organic assets. This enables that essence of wisdom and intelligence can be further transplanted in a coarse substantial manner. This means that, for example, these assets can be taken from one brain and be genetically modified in order to replant them into another brain. As a result, entire races of life forms can be brought to an equal level of essence of wisdom, knowledge, and intelligence without each individual being having to go through the different evolutionary periods. In this way, even a new spirit form, which the human being of Earth often mistakenly refers to as mentally ill or idiotic, can be turned into a highly developed knowledge and life form. But your scientists have already been working in this direction for a long time and have also had very good successes to record, even though this is not known to the general public. Intelligence and essence of wisdom are thus in no way the result of genes, and they are also not transmitted and brought along by the spirit itself which inhabits the body. This means, therefore, that an intellectual or very wise human being can bring offspring, which the earth human describes as mentally ill and idiotic, whereas, however, human beings who are weak in consciousness and intelligence can procreate offspring of horrendous development of consciousness and intelligence. This is really only connected with the extent to which the respective material consciousness residing in a body is itself developed in terms of knowledge. So, though it's possible to take these acid substances from your brain and put like other acid substances in, and you could kind of make an evolutionary jump, this is not recommended. Because you would have a hard time to process and live that. Because the experiences and the cognitions are lacking that would substitute your wisdom, you know. It's a bit like when you have, sometimes we have an idea and say, where is this coming from, you know? Oh, I'm really smart, you know. and well, then you had a had a good idea, and that is already sometimes a bit bewildering, where you bewilder yourself even, of your development or of what you're capable of. And so to do that would be completely wrong, even though it would be possible, And so by creation or by nature, it's right that everyone develops slowly, step by step, step by step, and not trying to jump ahead or so, But one can develop quite a bit within a lifetime. That do not underestimate if a person is really really turning inwardly, in it really, let's say, take meditation important and to really calm down within and learn that, to really become really calm under any circumstances, then where this calm is imperturbable, and also to nurture compassion and to feel deeper when it goes into the Empfindung, where there's no real equivalent word for that, which are like really deep feelings, to fathom that and then see how intense certain feelings can be, but also to learn that in the end it's also just a feeling. It comes and goes, and those are more important things to focus on and develop. And how deep can a person feel? How intense can a person feel? That is much more important to investigate and make experiences. Yeah. That then leads to real knowledge, not this book knowledge or so. And that sometimes also requires to take risks in life or so, I don't mean taking risk, driving too fast or so, but, maybe starting a business and you're not sure, and maybe it doesn't work out, but, now you know that this is not your way, If you never try, then, it's, or same with relationships, You can never know 100% if it works out or not, Also, people change. It might be great, and then after a few years, people change, But there are all experiences in your life that are important, and that's how you can learn on that. And usually you learn more in the hard times than in the good times, So that is it's living life, learning to live life. That is, and have this sense of adventure, which we kind of squash in the children usually, and have these dull people running around everywhere. And instead of saying, yeah, okay, I've never done this, but no, give it a try, or so. And that is kind of salt in the soup, in your life, So, okay. Yeah. This is really only connected with the extent to which the respective material consciousness residing in a body is itself developed in terms of knowledge, she said. And Billy asked about spiritual illnesses, or so-called spiritual illnesses. And Semjase says, there are no real spirit illnesses, but only material illnesses of consciousness. And these are based on a delusion brought about with Gewaltsamkeit of a consciousness that is either still underdeveloped in terms of knowledge or is already educated. And since the genes are influenced by the consciousness, they catch the confused impulses, store them, and create the confused idea to become the confused life form. Life forms disturbed in such a way, however, normalize again from generation to generation through the unstoppable further development of the spirit and through the regeneration of the consciousness, through the evolution which is caused periodically. So, whatever you think and feel and do makes you and forms your consciousness. And if people have lots of confused thoughts, and they become more and more confused, to the point that they can become schizophrenic and things like that, where it even have a organic change in the brain which you can measure, and basically a damage in the brain, and at some point it can become irreversible. And there's little you can do. For those people, it's then good, of course, to talk to people who are rational and logical and can give, if they have the knowledge, to give them good advice. But it's their free will. If they want to stay stuck in that kind of thinking, there's very little you can do, So in there are more and more also in Zurich. They kind of experiment with hallucinogens, and give them to patients, and so people who have psychological problems, and they kind of open a door to them, to see reality differently, and so basically to send them on a controlled trip, and that is kind of successful in the sense that it really opens up, kind of opens doors to them, to perceptions they never had, and so therefore expand really. So consciousness cannot expand, but get a bigger picture of things. But it can only be kind of the kick-off, It's not the cure. They then have to continue and keep working. It's not that they take once a drug, and LSD or whatever, and they're fine, But it can open new pathways in the brain, and that can be the kind of kick-off that, that they work on themselves, and then that their brain functions more and more correctly, that they think more and more logical and so on, rational and so on. That's what they have partially understood yet, that, and that's why they use it also cautiously, which is good. But I think that's very good that they do that in Zurich and also in other parts of the world, that they use hallucinogens to kind of get people out of their stuck situation, But if people are, some are so stuck that even if though they get it, these drugs, and that it doesn't work at all, and they become even more hostile or so, yeah. So it's not so easy whom to give and whom not, even if they agree. Of course, it's always on a voluntary basis, But it doesn't always work, to get the people out of their stuck thinking, And it also shows how much power, again, is in your thoughts, You form your brain, actually, So if your kind of brain is a dump or a flower garden, it's pretty much up to you. This faulty control then in turn sets off impulses in order to intersperse the brain assets with the same false factors and to cause a confusion, a delusion that as a result actually becomes organic. So that's what I just tried to explain. It influences the acid substances in your brain, and that is very important. So every thought you have, you even if you have negative thoughts, be aware of it and then say, okay, I stop it now, So and they will come less and less often, So and that's how it subsides step by step, by cutting it off when the thought arises, that you're aware of it and then, don't follow it anymore. So that takes time. But you can also develop positive thoughts, to counteract that, But in general, the thinking should be neutral positive. The evolution of the consciousness, however, ensures that the delusion can normalize again over generations, as I have already mentioned. Life forms disturbed in such a way may be burdened differently depending on their kind, but likewise their offspring. Depending on the stage of development of the body-inhabiting spirit of the offspring, these can become more or less disturbed in their consciousness. A very low-developed consciousness, quite decidedly more than a high-developed one, whereby it is even feasible that through the power of the spirit, such faulty controls are able to neutralize themselves. Okay, so what you think is really important, and pay attention to it. But don't panic if you have a negative thought, Just then try to develop a positive one, which is actually not easy then to kind of balance that. So now they talk about theory of relativity, and Billy asks in particular about time dilation. And so Semjase says, there are various possibilities for mastering the space. To describe them all, however, would make no sense, as they would be too incomprehensible and too fantastic for the human beings of Earth. With flying objects, however, there's only a single possibility for mastering the space safely. This possibility is that of hyperspace, in which a dilation of time is abolished, since the theory of relativity remains just that, a theory. This doesn't mean that Einstein is wrong, but there has to be an addition made, as far as I know. And so this doesn't mean that Einstein's thinking is incorrect or completely wrong or so. But it's, of course, a theory, theoretical. And she talks about now practical aspects about it. But the elimination of a time shift or time dilation requires the breaking through to the hyperspace, as I have already explained before. I'm not allowed to give more precise details, but in any case, the jump occurs very quickly under the momentary paralysis of the protective shield and with suddenly increased speed, which results in an instantaneous expansion of the mass. Now, this is not so easy to understand, and I don't fully understand it easy also, but it's she talks about the jump, which is then when null time kicks in, and we would see it as a jump in space, though it's not really a jump. You cannot jump in space, This means that the process to be inhibited occurs so quickly that the speed and certain processes which are generated by apparatuses distort the material within millions of a fraction of a second, making it a fine form which is capable of timelessly traversing the superspace. I read a little more. As said, it is not just about the speed, even though it expands that of light exceeds that of light thousands of millions of times, but various other processes are additionally required. So it's not one process, but several processes happening at the same time to safely traverse these huge distances. And it's not as simple as our scientists would probably believe, if they can even imagine that, Only due to the speed itself, the effect of the mass changing is created, which is what makes a hyper jump possible. The mass of a body grows in proportion to the increase in its speed. This means that the mass grows endlessly. However, our ships are protected by protective shields, and these prevent this process, and only the switching off of the shield allows for the distorted effect. It is precisely this process, then, that is then exploited to accelerate the actual distortion and to cause the dematerialization. As a result, space and time become paralyzed at the same time and cancel each other out, meaning that the ship is already rematerializing at its destination when it dematerializes at the point of departure. So this effect of increase of mass, which is becoming infinite, that's how I understand it, causes like a sucking effect of extreme acceleration, and the ship itself is protected against it, but it seems like for a tiny fraction of a second or whatever, it is allowed, and this kind of has this sucking effect that it's sucked towards the point of the destination. And this happens so quickly that when it dematerializes at the point of departure, it already rematerializes at the destination. It's maybe a bit like a vacuum, which kind of has a huge sucking effect, but I don't know more about that either, but she gives quite a bit of information there already. It's just hard to understand, This whole process lasts no longer than a millionth of a fraction of a second, so that also life forms crossing the hyperspace do not have to pay the price for changes of any kind. If spaceships fly slower than the speed of light, then this requires firstly an irresponsible amount of time, which is, however, particularly with newcomers to space travel always the case. Everyone only learns from experiences and cognitions. So that's what we are doing. We are much slower at the speed of light, of course, and we have all these problems, and it takes so long, and also the travel to Mars is a gigantic effort with this technology, which is not reasonable and feasible. It can be done probably at some point, and maybe we'll see that SpaceX gets to Mars, but then they bring a few more stones back, and that's pretty much it, This technology is just too primitive, way too primitive, this explosion technology, to bring these masses of material to Mars that they could survive there for a longer period of time, and the planet is pretty much used up anyway already. I mean, people live there already, and you see what they made of it. It's still in the habitable zone around the sun, and they basically destroyed their planet. Not totally like Malona, but it's uninhabitable, so it's though that we might live on Mars again at some point. There's water, plenty of water, not just the ice caps which are known, but also underground. But right now it is much too early. It's just technology is just too primitive yet. Secondly, this type of spaceflight is very dangerous and puts every reaching of destination into question. If a spaceship breaks through the speed of light without using the hyperspace, however, then that catastrophe, which you call the theory of relativity, befalls the ship and its occupants. Speeds above that of the light harbor all sorts of dangers if the barrier of hyperspace is not breached and superspace is not made an ally. Time dilation is just one of these dangers. Another danger is that, in this case too, the mass of a spacecraft expands to infinity in relation to its speed and can, under certain circumstances, result in the destruction of the ship and its occupants. There are, however, still many other dangers. Nevertheless, all life forms must complete their evolutionary process through which they gain experiences and knowledge. Also, our forebears had to struggle with these problems and got lost in space and time. However, the same has happened and is happening to other life forms. Hence, it happens again and again that some time travelers from the past appear, which often causes very big problems for them. So, usually we think time travelers come from the future, but time travelers can come from the past too, Billy said there was twice high-tech on this planet already. I mean, not our high-tech, that's not high-tech. I mean real high-tech, like like they have in the Federation. Or maybe not that high-tech, but certainly that people were able to come here and leave the planet and travel through hyperspace. And that, also then with time traveling, there are lots of problems coming, It's really difficult to master all these technologies. And it will cost, of course, many people's lives. What I liked about Star Wars was in the beginning it said that this story takes place a long time ago, that it's not taking place in the future, though it's a futuristic story for us, but it takes place in the past. And that was a very cool idea, I thought. Often they can no longer find their home worlds, or else find them completely destroyed. This is what happened with Gilgamesh. His world got destroyed during his absence, and now he lives on Earth. Though he could live somewhere in the Federation, I think, but he wanted to stay on Earth. So, he certainly has a sense of adventure, because he would be much safer, of course, on one of the planets of the Federation, Now and then, beings of this kind that are foreign to the galaxy also appear, which have already penetrated as far as Earth and will also continue to come again and again. So, about the UFOs, it's always difficult to say who they are. They can be even from Earth. There are a few high-tech civilizations living on Earth. But they can be from the future, they can be from the past, they can be from a different galaxy, so far away. But also from other planets within the galaxy. So it's really hard to say who is who, and basically impossible what their agenda is, except that they're not hostile in general, because they haven't taken over the planet, which would be easy for them, of course. But this seems to be like the code of ethics, you could say, in the universe, that you just don't take over a planet, in general, But I mean, we would take over planets if we go out, America just announced that, every material, mind, or whatever in the universe is theirs, So, I mean, complete delusional people in the Pentagon and in Washington, but, we don't even get to Mars but already claim everything, They are such megalomaniacs. It's just incredible, you know. And possibly sharing, maybe, you know. No, it's all ours, you know. It's you just, I mean, you couldn't write this, you know. Yeah, welcome to Earth, or United States of America. Some such time travelers have also been stranded on the Earth in earlier times and never left here. So that incidents in Tunguska in 1908 was one of these incidences, and they messed up because they contacted humans on Earth and even had sexual relations, and somewhere in Russia there it was, and or Mongolia, that area. And then the Plejaren offered to help them, and but the people at their home planet said, don't leave them, you know. They broke the rules, and so they left them here and didn't help them, and they decided to kill themselves by destroying their spaceship with a nuclear reaction. And technologically they couldn't repair it to the point that they could leave through hyperspace, and so they were stranded here on Earth. And that was this huge explosion in 1908 in Siberia, where nobody died, fortunately, because it was so far away from any civilization, and but of course destroyed huge areas of forest there. And and of course they take birth on this planet now, and kind of fell back in their evolutionary process, you know. But that was, again, really their own fault, because they didn't stick to the rules. So that shows that we have to be cautious, of course, as Semjase said. But in general, our approach should be not just, you know, there's a UFO, okay, shoot at it, you know, as they tried, you know. And many times, and in a few times, I think even successfully, you know, bringing it down. That is not how you should behave, you know, especially when they have this better technology, you know. You cannot expect that the reaction will always be passive and not to do anything. So if there is ever really a kind of fly-in and you know, a lesson is taught or so, or possible takeover of the planet, that would be due to us attacking them in secret, you know, which of course is denied, you know. But it's happening, you know. Yeah. Some such time travelers have also been stranded on the Earth in earlier times and never left here. Old strange legends and tales about them are known among you. Nevertheless, in the course of time, many of these creatures died out, or they degenerated or mixed with the earthly life forms. It is also not uncommon for such time travelers to visit the Earth even today. And many are among them who never find their home worlds again, and, therefore, simply settle somewhere on other worlds. Yeah, so that's always very tragic when you cannot return to your planet, you know. So on the one hand, it's adventurous, maybe, you know, to fly out into space and discover new worlds. But if your technology is not close to perfection or relative perfection, then you might end somewhere where you don't want to be, Often, however, they also get lost in the expanse of space and die. Not seldom, they are thousands or even millions of years on the move, while for them, however, only a few minutes or few years pass. That is also pretty bad if you kind of you might come back to the planet and it's thousands of years have passed, and then to reintegrate, that is really hard, of course, psychologically. The dangers of speed are very great, and they already start at just a few kilometers per hour if the flying objects or vehicles are not shielded. Even minimal speeds of a few kilometers per hour impair the material in its shape, structure, and stability if no protective measures are present. A natural consequence is the expansion of mass and the decomposition of material. This means that even at low speeds, the mass of a vehicle or flying object imperceptibly increases in relation to the speed and causes the effect of slow destruction. As said, this already happens at a few kilometers per hour of speed, and in minimalistic terms that are hardly detectable with your technology. At low speeds, the process also takes a very long time, and may, under certain circumstances, require hundreds of years. At very high speeds, however, the time is reduced to decades or a few years. So if you fly close to the speed of light for a few years through space, then the whole spacecraft will fall apart, So, So therefore, this is for the future. This information is very important to shield the objects, at high speeds. Also at low speeds would be good, but we don't even know how to shield it. Also, the life forms themselves are impaired by this process, because also their masses change because of the speed. The function of the brain becomes affected because its mass changes. This has the consequence that all functions are slowed down and outages occur. In other words, this means that all of a sudden the thinking and reaction functions stop and a void develops. The life form thereby loses control over itself and its vehicle. The life form effectively loses control over its own functions. Of course, any life form is capable of gradually getting used to and controlling these functions to some extent. However, for every life form, there is somewhere the absolute limit where it simply must fail. According to earthly terms, it may often take years before such incidents plague a human being. Young and powerful in every respect, the human being is able to endure very much. However, there also comes his time when he becomes subject to the disregarded laws of nature. Every individual is different from another, and so also his limits. One thing is certain, though: once a life form fails in this respect, its limit of what is tolerable has been reached, and it must no longer operate any machines of any kind that reach more than the speed of its own walking, unless such machines are protected against the mass-expanding influences. If the human beings of Earth would observe and follow this recommendation, then they would have less hardship, misery, invalids, and fatalities to record. So this is for the future, and if humankind follows the recommendations, then we will have less hardship. But on our planet, but further in the future, I think they will follow, after the fatalities. But the human being is willfully stubborn, and he has been for ages, and he does not want to be taught. Still today, he considers himself the crown of creation and lives in the delusion of being the only human life form in the universe. Nevertheless, you should spread these words among all those who have already controlled their megalomania and want to follow our remarks. So here it is from the horse's mouth. Mankind is megalomania. Billy, fantastic. Our utopia writers compared with these things are really just miserable pen pushers without imagination. Semjase, make no mistake, because many of them come very close to the possibilities and the truth. Especially good writers of this kind are often even inspired by us and other powers, and their works prepare the human beings for what is to come. But also in this way, scientists are made aware of certain areas and possibilities upon which they then do research in certain directions and achieve success. Billy, can you say that? Can you just say that? Semjase, certainly, because time has come for this explanation. And furthermore, very many human beings are already thinking of it, even if they only suspect these connections. Billy, then the rapid development of technology, etc., over the last 100 years is thus not solely the work of the human beings on the earth. Semjase, no, because also we and many others have contributed some things, even though the development is conditioned by the age. Billy, you mean the Aquarian age? Semjase, sure, that is the era I'm talking about. Now, these impulses the Plejaren sent out are no active manipulation of a person, but you have, even if you receive impulses, but you don't react to it, you say, oh, that's a nice idea, but you don't do anything with it, then it doesn't further humanity in any way. And of course you don't know what impulses are from the Plejaren or what are your own idea. Sometimes I also wonder a couple of times, but I don't pay any attention to that anymore. If I have the idea, I have the idea, no matter where it comes from. But the Plejaren have put out impulses also, like for the internet, the creation of the internet and so on, that it would manifest and to help speed up a little bit our evolution, when the time is ready for whatever invention, So this is always passive, it's not active interference or so. Semjase, it will bring developmental change events for the eventual change events. Okay. Okay, I just read it as it is. It will bring developmental change events for the human beings of Earth, very good ones, but also very bad ones. So the change now in this century and the next century will be not good, actually very bad, but we will have to go through that, and then better times will come. But that will be also slow and hard, and the mission will end in 3,999, and but again, that is not the end of the world or so. It will continue. It's just the end of the mission. But until then, we will have made quite a bit of progress, certainly, and very good changes will also happen during that time. But not now. This is a time of hardship, you could say, now. And it will get worse and worse and harder, and it's that's simply the learning process. People seem to have to learn always the hard way. Particularly grave are in this regard the religious influences, because this intellectual, spiritual, consciousness-based era brings forth very many new and evil types of religions and sects, where through the human being is supposed to be even more struck in their delusion, whereby also sectarian mass suicides and murders are to be feared. But we want to try to prevent this, because otherwise the same thing will happen that happened to our ancestors, namely that the sect rulers and scientists will, as time goes by, also elevate themselves to Ishvis, or gods, and bring about the same catastrophe over creatures and solar systems as it was also characteristic of our forebears and many other races. So this is always the same problem everywhere in the universe, that scientists or sect rulers think they know it all and put themselves above the others, instead of seeing reality that they're no better and no higher or anything like that. And then all the problems start, that they tell the other ones and try to dominate them, and the ego creeps in more and more, and then everything falls apart, and then, it's all in shambles, and then it's built up again, and then again. So it's a vicious cycle, The Plejaren, however, they have traveled so far into the future already. I know of like 1 to 2 million years, and their planet was still a beautiful planet, and they lived in peace, and Federation was intact. And so that is a very long time. 1 to 2 million years of having peace. They have it now for 50,000 years. That is incredible achievement. I think the greatest achievement any civilization can bring about, to keep peace. And to have a non-hierarchical power structure, that it's really a flat and not like a pyramid like we have in everything, and with the mass of the people not even knowing who's at the top, Particularly the scientists are always the ones who first recognize the truth that above a life form and above all stands the creation alone, who behaves completely passively, however, in every respect toward any creations and events in the universe. The naming as such of the creation says that the creation is about It is the creation. What the creation is about. It is the creation. Yeah. The creation simply creates out to evolve itself. You know, that's the initial impulse, you could say. You know. Over 7 great times, the creation creates life in countless forms over and over again. The creation constantly creates new life forms unstoppably. But once these are created, they are left to their own devices with the life task of their development. So there is free will, always was and always will be, though of course animals are much more limited in that. We as humans have real free will, but because of conditioning, we are often not really aware of that. You know, we feel stuck in our way of life or in our life in general, but we are not. You can make decisions to break free of whatever you feel bonds you. And in German it was explained much better, that sentence, or much more precise. Life task, yeah. Well, the task of your life is to evolve in consciousness, you know. And that's also the meaning of life, you know. This is actually a very profound sentence. Yeah. But what your task in your life is, you have to find out for yourself, of course. You know. But in general, it's to acquire knowledge and wisdom and to evolve in consciousness. That's the meaning of life for everyone. Billy, another question concerns soul and spirit. Semjase. Am I right that the assumption that they are not one and the same? Semjase, of course, soul and spirit are not two different terms for a single factor. Namely, not only for the spirit, rather they are based on two different values. Okay, and what about the human psyche? It is actually the soul, right? Semjase, you know and understand more about this than any of those you call clerics, psychiatrists, and philosophers. Yeah, it would be that's true, of course, and it would be advisable that they come to Billy and talk to him or learn from him through his writings. And but that is rarely the case, of course, you know. Billy, that is a whole garden of flowers. Semjase, which, however, you can enjoy. Billy, thank you. Yeah. Soul and psyche are basically two synonyms for the same. And spirit is a different thing, of course. That is the creation energy form within you. Thank you, Billy says. But now, once again, a question regarding the age. You said that the age would be conditioned genetically. Does that apply 100%? Semjase? Not to that extent, no, because various other factors still play an important role. The most important points with this are the external influences such as living conditions, health, nutrition, and environment, and so on. Billy, that is what I thought. Are you able to explain more about that to me? Semjase, that would take us too far. Billy, okay then, but how is this then with you? Semjase, the laws are of equal value throughout the universe. When we have a higher life expectancy than the human being on Earth, then this is conditioned by life. But at the same time, research and evolution also play a role that is not insignificant. Billy, that is already enough, thank you. So, Semjase said at some other point, there is of course this genetic factor, and they're looking for the aging gene, and I don't know how far they are in secret, but because of overpopulation, it would be detrimental if we would live much longer, Our life expectancy is increasing already, but this will also change again, we are polluting our environment so much, and we have to see. But in general, the life expectancy, if you live healthy and medicine advances, etc., that we become older and older. And of course, if this genetic manipulation that took place a long time ago is kind of reversed, then I guess we can become quite a bit older, But it all goes kind of hand in hand, evolution of consciousness, but also physical improvements, It's we have both, So you have to work on both of it to live longer. Billy, are there therefore any possibilities of influencing the life expectancy according to our current choosing? Semjase, of course there are, but I'm not allowed to mention these possibilities, especially not in terms of genetic factors. Billy, then let us leave it. However, are you then allowed to tell me something according to which at least symptoms of illness can be contained? Semjase, in what respect? Billy, although I do not believe in them, I am thinking of so-called lucky charms, of amulets. Semjase, that is nonsense in every respect. Billy, what about metal alloys and so forth, as well as crystals and precious stones that are supposed to catch or absorb certain radiations? Semjase, that has its rightness. Special things of this kind have a certain effect, but they achieve only partially successes and are not 100% effective. Fundamentally, however, they are valuable and can save a lot of hardship and suffering, whereby the fact must be seen nonetheless that related successes are, as a rule, only won through delusion and imagination. So, if somebody has cancer and another one says, I put stones on you and you will heal, if the person heals, it becomes from their belief, but not from the stones, That's such severe disease, if you put stones or crystals on someone, the person doesn't heal. But of course, they can absorb certain negative radiation and so on, They have some beneficial propensities, But in general, it's not really a field of medicine, Also, our knowledge is way too limited concerning that. Billy, she said, Semjase said, there are, however, certain methods to let crystals and precious stones, etc., become effective medicines. Billy, can you tell me some? Semjase, sure. But I would recommend to you that you keep these things to yourself. Since you do not have regular earnings for reasons I know best, you could make and sell these things yourself as very useful aids. Billy, I'm no materialist. Semjase, that has nothing to do with it, because you too must live. Billy, of course, but I have to think about that first. Semjase, do that thoroughly, because you can thereby help many human beings. Billy, if that is so, Semjase, it is so. Billy, then I agree. However, I must comply with the laws that govern us. Otherwise, I would come in conflict with them. Officially, we need a permit for such a trade in the sense mentioned, also for potential medication, etc. Semjase, so then listen, and then she gives him information. And 12 things are named, what purposes they serve, and how they must be made. These are exclusively things that are able to influence rheumatism and many other diseases, etc. Billy, thanks, Semjase. But now, is there anything else on a large scale that achieves a better effect? Semjase, sure. I can give you the exact description of a machine that brings forth an extraordinary effect for all sorts of ailments and diseases. This machine causes an absolute refreshment of the whole body, a total blood circulation and revitalization in connection with a healing of the most diverse ailments. It is about and then comes a precise description follows, for the manufacture of a machine for the purpose of maintaining or regaining the health. Billy, fantastic, Semjase, but how should I build this machine, as I lack the financial means for it? Semjase, you will find patrons for it if you make an effort to do so. Billy, there's a spider. Go home. Okay. The way I see it, though, such a machine with the development and everything would come to at least 3 million francs for me. Semjase, nevertheless, you will be able to build it, and you also will not have to worry about your living if you really want to strive for it. Billy, if you say so, Semjase, it will be so. Billy, I will gladly accept the surprise, but now I have still 2 other questions. Now, this machine was never built because Swart already told Billy about this machine, and Swart was able to foresee that if this machine is built, that Billy told me our population would be 3 times of what it is today. So instead of having close to 9.5 billion people on planet Earth, we would have somewhere between 29 and 30 billion people on this planet, which would be completely destructive, a total catastrophe. The overpopulation we have already is already a huge catastrophe, but this would be even worse, of course. And so Billy knew already that he cannot build this machine, but he didn't want to say it, and that's Billy's way of, like, oh, there's no money and so on, and which of course was true, but it's good. Also, this machine, of course, can be also used in other ways and to torture and kill people, So, and that would have happened too. And so when you think, oh, that would have been great for Earth, well, that is, of course, someone with a beneficial attitude, but that's not how things are run on this planet, Things would be used destructively, and or people would live much, much longer, have much more offspring, and there's this basic knowledge of truth, just way too prevalent in mankind, that we would just procreate and procreate and procreate, and there would be no awareness as it is today that this is a huge problem. The problem is not even acknowledged, or, when it comes to climate change or, pollution, etc., overpopulation is never mentioned that is the cause, the main driving problem, And it's you can just watch, the stupidity of mankind and how things go down. Of course, you can also start a YouTube channel and talk about it, Of course, that would be good and right thing to do, but you won't have millions of clicks, of course, Then he asked about how life came about, and how did the first life arise? Semjase says, your scientists are mostly aware of that, Billy. So it was not just a matter of a living creature being there, but everything developed from a so-called atmosphere and the amino acids resulting from it. Semjase, sure. And then Billy, we have already spoken several times about the Talmud Jmmanuel. Emmanuel himself has, over the course of the last 2,000 years, fundamentally been used again and again as a main religious figure. Is the intention of once again using this already long-dead human being to make a new belief direction and an idol out of him? Is the Talmud Jmmanuel supposed to serve this purpose? Semjase, no. Emmanuel himself was just a human being like any other human being, which you know better than I do. He was just endowed with very great knowledge. He represents neither a symbol nor an idol nor anything else. He was certainly a teacher, a prophet of the spiritual and conscious-based knowledge and the essence of wisdom, but however, nothing beyond that. Any life forms should also never be idolized or even worshipped, such as the human being is accustomed to do. So, yeah, any worshipping, Also this, which borders on the worshipping of actors or athletes, is also, this comes also from religion, Therefore, when we had the Talmud Jmmanuel gathered from his 2,000-year-old hiding place, it was only for the reason that the time of truth has come. So Billy discovered or was led to the place in the grave of Emmanuel where he found the Talmud Jmmanuel. The teaching of Emmanuel is not his teaching, but that of the creation and the laws of the creation, which Emmanuel also first had to learn, recognize, and acknowledge. So Emmanuel had to learn everything and develop wisdom, and so did Billy, and so do every human being. Everyone has to learn for himself, study, and make experiences and realizations. That is what everyone has to learn, and there's no way around it. That's a law of creation, you could say. And as she explained further, if you kind of transfer these acid substances in the brain, that somebody could evolve quicker or so, or to jump ahead, that will then have bad repercussions, severe psychological problems, and people could even become, go insane or so, but certainly be not being able to cope with the knowledge and you would be instilled with. So it's better to learn step by step. That's actually also the quickest way then. In the end. Because of that, he has only made known what the natural laws call for. A mistake of insanity shall not be made another time, with Emmanuel being regarded and idolized as the embodiment of the teaching that he brought. The truth of the Talmud shall be taught and recognized as such, without a calling into play the name of Emmanuel and his glorification. Important are only the truth and the laws, but not the person who brought this teaching, laws, and the truth. Hence, the same accounts for Billy, of course. Hence, if a cult would be established around Emmanuel another time, then the purpose would not be fulfilled. The human being, Emmanuel, should not continue to be glorified, as solely the truth and the laws are of absolute importance. But now, my time is up, blah, blah, blah. Sie reden dann aber doch noch weiter. They they keep talking. Billy, thanks, Semjase. The questions are always about friends and acquaintances also wanting to... Did I want to say anything about Emmanuel? No. No, you have to just read it and find out for yourself if it's true or not. It is a very important book. I can say that. Semjase said the most important book of what Billy writes, or it was just translated basically. I guess because we are living in such a Christian and world, that this will have a big impact on many, many, many Christians, of course. Yeah, and therefore create a lot of change in the future then. Yeah, Billy wrote many good books, you know. For me, other books are more important. But in general, for the whole world, if Semjase says this will be the most important book, it's probably that. Yeah. Yeah. So the questions are always about friends and acquaintances also wanting to enter into contact with you. At the least, they would already be satisfied if they could just look at or photograph or film or your beamship from a distance once. Is there not nevertheless a possibility to satisfy their curiosity, etc.? Semjase, have I not expressed myself clearly enough? I have already said several times that this cannot happen and that under no circumstances. We have chosen you alone, and it stays that way. Nothing can be changed about it. I know that some of your friends only want to enter into contact with me because they doubt your information and want to have proofs. Even the photos you have taken are not accepted by them as proof because they are too caught up in mistrust and in false assumptions of what is real. They believe that this makes them realistic, thinking human beings, but in truth, they are not. Their recognition of reality is not based on the knowledge of cognition, but on a line of argument that makes themselves uncertain. They believe that only what they are able to see with their own eyes and touch with their hands is real, whereby they, however, do not consider that they can be deceived by their own seeing and touching. For example, the appearances at Fatima in 1917, that were just projections and by extraterrestrial beings, and to mislead people and keep them in bondage to religion and so on. And so they saw it, but it wasn't real, you know. But they perceived it as real, you know, in their false perception. So the photos of Billy, there have never been any scientific scientific investigation where it has been shown that there was any falsification. There are certain photos show things which are unusual, but that's not a fake then, you know. Yeah. Proofs are always only valid as reality if they are found in knowledge and recognition, which means that only consciousness-based hard work enables a real line of argumentation, but never only seeing or touching, etc. alone. So this consciousness-based hard work is what most people don't want to do, of course. And that's why it's so hard to get the message out, of course, you know. And the media, of course, is also instructed not to follow up, even though some people in the media know exactly that Billy is telling the truth, you know. But they're not allowed to tell. And and if, then it's only in a ridiculing way, you know. The good journalists, of course, keep quiet about it, you know. which is sad, because there are more and more independent journalists and they could tell the truth. But for me, there's only one real journalist, and that's Jaime Maussan. All the others are just pretending, because this is the most important message, period. And that someone is in contact with extraterrestrials, and furthermore, they're benevolent and they want to help, and to keep that quiet is a crime in itself. But all the others are afraid of their reputation, and that's why they don't say anything, the journalists. And Jaime Maussan is the only one who has the courage to say whatever he discovers to be the facts and to be true, and present it as such, and let the people decide for themselves. And he's absolutely unique in that. So great respect to Jaime Maussan for telling the truth as it is, and not as the people would like it to be, or the people in power want it to be, or so, And he has to struggle also with lots of people, So great respect to him. And but that is a real journalist, who reports the facts as they are. And not to ignore facts or so, what all the others are doing. For these reasons, we gave you several times the opportunity to collect photographic material wherethrough you could confirm visually all your information in relation to the existence of our beam ships. And although you have many good pictures at your disposal, one does not believe you. On the contrary, further evidence is demanded in the form that we should break our own principles in order to make contact with other human beings of Earth as well. But we will not do that, and also will not deviate in any other way from our directives. But we do not want, and also are not allowed to exercise any coercion to convince the Earth humans of the truth. So there again, they don't use coercion. That is what we do, our governments and military and so on, it's enough as it is for us to understand. But it's everyone's choice to use your brain and consciousness to think correctly and discern what is the truth and what is a lie, We may only do what is within the scope of our directives, and these state that we have chosen you by determination, and that you should spread the truth at your discretion. However you want to manage that is up to you. Because you are a free life form. So they live what they are teaching, Also, I'm free to present the information as I want, and I showed really the first 4 videos I made. He said, "Oh, it's okay, it's good." Actually, he was quite pleased, and so that's why I keep doing it like this. I will make shorts some other times, but now I want to explain longer and that there's also more material and a little more understanding, and then maybe, because if you don't explain a lot first, it sounds just ridiculous, you know. If you just say, oh, the meaning of life is the evolution of consciousness. Well, you know, for thousands of years we are speculating about this, you know, and philosophers have written, you know, big books about it, you know, and it's that simple, you know. So you better explain in the beginning a little more and take your time, and then you can kind of condense some knowledge sometimes, maybe in also shorter videos. Yeah, and there's also this respect again for Billy to do. You will find out how to do it, you know, and not that everything is ordered and kind of that they give orders or so, and how to do it, you know, how the state interferes more and more with laws and in our lives, and cut our freedoms down and so on. You know, they are exactly the opposite, you know. They trust each other, and yeah. For the time being, you should furthermore also not take any additional photographs of my beamship, because the ones available to you are completely sufficient. I have given you ample opportunity to create good photo proofs, which are nevertheless doubted in many cases. Hence, it should suffice for the time being, because it is neither our nor your task to lift doubters and critics from their consciousness development in inhibiting doing and acting. So I repeat that sentence because this long word is quite unusual also in German, and it explains it very well. Hence, it should suffice for the time being, because it is neither our nor your task to lift doubters and critics from their consciousness development inhibiting doing and acting. So that's why I don't get into arguments with doubters or so, you know, because there's no point in it, you know. I don't do this to change anybody's opinion or so, you know. I just present the information, and if you find this interesting, good. If not, that's also fine, you know. That's up to you. And so neither the Plejaren nor Billy want to kind of change any doubters or critics' mind or so, you know, or opinion, you know. Everyone has to find out for himself or herself what the truth is or not. Yeah. Yeah. That's the 8th contact. And Billy actually did take a few photos when she left. Yeah, this is one of them. You know, it's very small, the object. But if you can, I don't know if you can focus that close. Yeah, now I think it's here, there. And but it's very clear in the photograph. If you enlarge it, it's a very sharp photo. He held it very quiet, or very calm. And but anyway, the photos come some other time. And so this is the 8th contact, and have a good time.